Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Brunch. I am your host, RM, and of course, we have with us today Russ Whitfield. Russ, how are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you so much. It is such a beautiful day here in the little village of Ham by the Thames, and I guess all over London. It's finally summer seems to have arrived, and it's not. Well, I say that yesterday was cold, but it seems to be okay now. So yeah, absolutely great. I saw my stepfather just now. So yeah, I did watch something last night that when we get through the intros and all that sort of thing, I'd like to bring up because I thought it was just outstanding what I watched last night. Like it was just outstanding. I was so happy with what I saw. So yeah, let's discuss that later on if we've got time.
Yeah. Let's we could start off with it. And good morning to you, Mario
Hey
Lopez.
Mario,
Hope you are well. Hope your mom is well, Mario. Always good to see you in the morning. Tom Jr. Jackson is here.
Tom Junior Jackson is always here, man. He's always everywhere. He's like a ninja ghost.
Great to see you, Tom Jr. Jackson, as always. Good morning to you. And Bonzo Kilborn is
All
here.
right, Bonzo.
How are you? Says, greetings, Earthlings. Well, greetings to you. Bonzo, good to see you. Thalia Meyer is here.
There's Thalia.
She's got the coffee, she's got the donuts, and a big smile,
Yeah,
which
one of us is lagging. I don't know who it is.
it might
My,
be me.
right.
Notice that I have there's some issue with my internet.
It's not bad. It's just you freeze every now and again, but your voice is still coming through. So it's just the audio stops and then catches up. So okay, it's you. It's not me. Not
Well, I
guilty.
apologize, guys, for that. I see something in live stream, excuse me, in StreamYard that says that the internet connection is not as great today. So I apologize. I'm having a lot of issues with it. But I managed to stream yesterday, no problem, for almost maybe 8 hours. So I don't know what's going on now.
Maybe it's knackered.
Yes,
You made
it's
it. You
tired.
worked it. You worked it too hard yesterday.
I really did, but
Uh,
I was gentle. Darth Plato, good morning to you, says Salvate Amici.
oh, Salwete.
Salvate
Yeah.
Amici. Well,
There we go.
Amici. Well, thank you, Darth Plato. So great to see you this morning. Oh, oops, I wrote in Portuguese. I did mean good afternoon. Hey, that's
All
okay.
right, Mario. It's kind of it's a bit exotic. Like we've got Portuguese weather here in England. So yeah, no, you're good, mate.
Absolutely, Mario. Hey, and good morning, Retro Nerd Girl. How are
There
you
she
today?
is, my resident crush. Hello, Retro.
How are you doing? So good to see you as always. Um, we also have Irene Jobson. Hi, Irene.
Hello.
How are you? It says good morning, lovely art. And oh, and that random guy. What? It's Russ, Irene. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Tom Jr. Jackson is saying that I stunned Artem last night when I told her in 2025 I'll be 50. She thought I was in my 30s. Yeah, I did think you were in your 30s, Tom Jr. Jackson. It's hard to believe that you are going to be 50. I That's very, very hard to believe.
Fucking only in 2025. Jesus Christ, I'm 52. I'm 53 next year. What's going on?
Well, to be honest with you, I think Tom just looks incredible for his age. And I'm not going to believe otherwise. If someone asks me how old he is, I'm going to say I think he's around 30. And that's the truth because that's what I thought he was. So, um, but it is another beautiful Sunday here in Sunday Rush. Hey, Nathan, how are you? Saw you last night. You stopped by. Nathan says, hello, Autumn and Russ. How's everyone doing? We're doing better now that you're here, Nathan. Hope you are well. Hope everybody's doing great. It's a great Sunday. It's great to be alive, everybody. It's so great to see you all this morning. So, uh, it's kind of very interesting time in entertainment right now because I've noticed that there's a lot of when I look for Regal theaters, which is the movie theater I go to with mom, most of the shows that are loaded in are movies that are animation. It's mostly animation, and a lot of Studio Ghibli films are coming back. There's that they've shown before, but now they're showing again. There's some new Studio Ghibli. There's some other animation houses, but there was a big film that came out recently, Russ, over the weekend, I guess, or Friday or Thursday, an animated Spider-Man film. Um, And Russ, did you get a chance to see Across the Spider-Verse?
No, I was too busy watching something else last night, so I haven't seen it yet. I've heard good things about it. I've heard good things about the first one, which I've still yet to watch. As I said constantly on here, I've never really made mine Marvel, as they say in Marvel terms. So it's not like when something, oh, come on, Bonzo man, I got a black belt in Wing Chun. Be careful. You never know. You never know. Beneath this calm exterior lurks, Jet Li Bruce Lee combination, mate. You got to be careful. Got to be careful.
And look at this. It looks like the fight will be a threesome. Oh my goodness.
That's it. Last man standing.
I love it.
How old is Bonzo? Because me and Tom are fucking past it. He's nearly 50. I'm over 50.
Oh, it's going to be like the Thunderdome.
It is.
3 men enter, 1 man leaves. And Retro Nerd Girl with her kind words, loving your hairstyle this morning. Artem, thank you, Retro Nerd Girl. So appreciate those kind words. So glad you were here this morning.
Actually, just a little bit above, Mario makes a comment that I'd like to come back to after we finish talking about Spider-Man. Yeah,
Well,
because we were talking about this yesterday.
Mhm,
Aram and I talk outside the stream, guys. We're kind of friends.
Yeah,
She stayed here in the house. I've met her.
Yes, yep. You've seen me in pajamas, which is something that I would wish I could erase your memory, like Men in Black. But
Well, I was kind of perving out, so it's all good. Don't worry about it.
Well, Mario Lopez says John Wick 4 is amazing. Keanu Reeves and Tom Cruise are the last action heroes. And Mario, I was telling Russ that I think it's very interesting comparing Fast 10 to John Wick 4 because, the amount of money that they spent on each film does not necessarily coincide with the amount of effort made to make each one. And I think John Wick 4 is just a masterpiece of action. Even though Fast 10 is known for action nowadays, right? Like it's known as an action film. When you look at the physical effort, there wasn't a whole bunch of CGI in John Wick 4. It's all, these stunt men and stunt women who are doing these incredible feats in the film. And, if you look at it frame per frame, John Wick 4 is just jam packed with incredible action, incredible fighting scenes, incredible setups. Even if you push aside the bulletproof suits, even if you remove that notion, it's still an incredible and very impressive film. Scott Adkins had that incredible scene where he plays a gangster or a sommelier or whatever you want to call him, a croupier, where he's just on top of the game and he has to fight while wearing that suit. Not for nothing, but even with all the jam-packed stars in Fast 10, John Wick really did pack a much heavier punch when it comes to even physical effort for the film. And yet the box office receipts, I feel like John Wick should be the billion-dollar film, Russ. What were your thoughts about that? And of course, we were talking about Tom Cruise as well, who feels the need to go ahead and do his own stunts, someone who's dedicated to keeping in shape, someone who knows that what people want realistic looking, effects. Does it make a difference? Do you think it's going to keep people coming back? Because Tom Cruise, in his case, Top Gun Maverick was the billion-dollar ticket. What are your thoughts about all this?
Well, I think there's several different strands there. So let me deal with the last one first. I think Tom Cruise in the later part of his career, the sort of 21st century part of his career, certainly with the rise of the Mission Impossible movies, he's become a thing in, and not till Christmas, Nathan. I'm not taking my shirt off till Christmas Day. Christmas Day, you're going to have the titties. I promise.
I will. And Retro Nerd Girl, we're going to open up a Sunday brunch Thunderdome. That's what's going
to Yeah. So I think Tom Cruise is a thing unto himself. When Mario says like he and Keanu Reeves are the last of the real movie stars, I would hesitate to give that mantle to even Keanu, because when you go and watch John Wick, you're going to watch John Wick. You're not going to see the latest Keanu Reeves movie. You're going to see John Wick. You're going to go see The Matrix. When you go watch Top Gun or you go watch Mission Impossible, you're going to watch the latest Tom Cruise movie. Why is that? Well, because we know, and Tom Cruise has let it be known quite heavily, that every single film Tom Cruise has made in the past couple of years, or most of them that he's made, I think you can give him a pass on The Mummy. No one's successful all the time, but by and large, we know that Tom Cruise is risking his life to entertain us, and that has become now a staple part of the Tom Cruise brand. Like, when he's jumping off with that motorcycle, like we've all seen the making of when he's going up on the ramp across the red line and he just throws himself off and they're all shitting themselves in case he has an accident. We've seen him throw himself out of the biggest building in the world from the top floor. We've seen himself sellotape himself to a aeroplane when it's taking off. We've seen him running across train. That's all him. So there's that. The common denominator with John Wick is, of course, that Keanu Reeves is doing all that stuff. Like, it's rarely a stuntman. Why is that? So that's your first strand there. So you've got Tom Cruise doing his Tom Cruise thing, and then you've got Keanu Reeves doing his action thing. Now, this is in A-list movies. This has become something of a dying art. Yeah, I miss Chuck Norris too, Irene Jobson. I miss him a lot. Me and my mate Chris, every time Chris comes over, we select a Chuck Norris movie to watch, and he's got hundreds, but invariably it's either Invasion USA or Lone Wolf McQuade, both of which are absolute classics. But yeah, and Chuck Norris would be not so much a groundbreaker, but certainly one of the people that took this, what I'm talking about now, to new heights. What we have, when I say we don't have this so often in A-list movies, we have it in John Wick, is the actual actor doing all of the things, all of the stunts, all of the fighting. So you've got someone like Chuck Norris, who was never an actor. He's a 7 times light heavyweight world karate full contact karate champion. So don't spill his fucking. But did I tell the story last week when he was in London in the 80s and someone tried to mug him? Geezer comes out to Chuck Norris and says, "Give me your Rolex," and it did not end well for the mugger. Since Jason Bourne come out and we had all that shaky cam stuff, it's become more and more and more possible to put actors like Matt Damon into a martial arts situation and have it look halfway decent. And they attempted this back in the 80s with Mel Gibson and Gary Busey having a fight at the end of Lethal Weapon, and it's really not great when you compare it to something like Lone Wolf McQuade or Invasion USA, because Chuck Norris is an expert martial artist and Mel Gibson and Gary Busey are not expert martial artists. The thing with Keanu Reeves is he's been training since The Matrix, right? And that's like, he's been training martial arts now for 20 years. So the guy knows what he's doing. You can put him up there with pretty much any one of these top guys today. And I know this for a fact because I saw him being interviewed on Scott Adkins' The Art of Action series, which I recommend everybody go and watch instantaneously, especially if you're female, because you get to gaze at Scott Adkins in admiration. Not that I do that at all, of course. No, I don't. But he got Keanu Reeves on the show because they made the movie together. And, Adkins was complimenting Keanu Reeves on how good he is. Now, of course, he's going to do that, but I sort of err on the side of he wouldn't have said, I think you're really brilliant. No, you kind of get what we do. He said if he didn't have to. There's Chuck, old Chuck with his 80s hair. So on the A-list, we have Chad Stahelski, who's the director of John Wick, and we have Keanu Reeves. I'm bubbling away underneath that, and I do get. Sometimes when I watch YouTube, I get a little bit cross because I hear people complaining that there's no roles for people like me, and all these films are being swapped, and this and that, and the other. And this may well be true of Disney and Marvel and Star Wars and things like that, but there are hundreds and hundreds upon hundreds of these kind of action movies that are essentially B movies that come out all the time, and they're all really good, and they all pretty much deliver what we claim we want. So we want films without a particular political agenda, films that are just straightforward action movies with no garbage in them. There's a ton of them. I can see Retro down here says, I'm a big fan of Scott Adkins. I binge watched his channel last month and it was amazing. Well, you can binge watch all of his movies, right? I mean, I know Retro has, but I'm just saying the general you, all of those films deliver. Now, they may not have the budget of a John Wick, but nevertheless, on what money they have, they still manage to make this stuff look amazing. Why? Because they're all expert martial artists. And that's the key. And that martial artistry has sort of become a dying art. And I've often thought that Hollywood is like a bit of like a school of fish when it comes to this sort of thing. Like someone does something and the whole school of fishes changes and it goes off in a different direction and starts doing things. So I think this decision to go with actors and sort of cut and jump and try to make them look like martial artists has been effective up to a certain point, but you can see the wheels come off when you've got a director that doesn't really know that style, excuse me, that style of filming, and actors who aren't trained martial artists. Now, oh, there he is. That's what I look like. That's what I'm gonna. Sorry, that's what I'm gonna look like at Christmas. I promise. That's right. Um, Thank you, Retro. So Retro backs me up here. She says Russ is right. There are a ton of movies out there we have yet to discover. They don't have the money behind them. No, they don't. And they don't have the promotion behind them. Retro. This is kind of the point. Is that when they talk about like the Hollywood movie costs like $100 million to make or $200 million to make, and then they spend the same amount of money again on the marketing. Well, Scott Adkins, outside of John Wick, just none of his movies are ever going to, it's so hard, guys. It's so hard trying to get money to make a film. But stop it, Rita. She's going off, and I can see what you're doing.
Hello, Keely Chow. Good morning. I'm just looking at the best perspective of Scott Adkins. That's all.
Yeah,
there is something said about the physique of these men who have such incredible conditioning, and I think it's great that we do get to see it up close.
Yeah, Irene Jobson says I could wash my laundry on those abs. Yeah, you totally could. And Darth Plato actually raises a good point here. He says, wasn't Jason Statham gunning for the action star? Yeah, he kind of was. And yeah, Jason Statham's also a brilliant martial artist as well. But unlike Adkins, who I imagine would want all the success of Jason Statham, Statham's sort of become tied to franchises, hasn't he? Where he's not the guy. So he's in Fast and Furious, and I'll come on to talk about that in a second because this sort of segues nicely into it. He's in Fast and Furious, and he's in the Expendables. Name me another.
Yeah,
you have to think, right? Now there's one he did which was absolutely brilliant, where he joins an armored car company, and it's Josh. God, I forget his name now. He was a big deal, this actor, and he's no longer a big deal. But he was in a film with Statham, and somebody will know in the chat, I'm sure. It's about a heist that they do on an armored truck. But Statham has sort of succumbed to being in franchises, and that's fine. He's earning a fortune and all the rest of it. But we were talking about the director and the actor being able to perform the stunts. Now, we touched on, when Aram and I were talking yesterday, we touched on this. Why is it that John Wick looks so good, yet the fight between Michelle Rodriguez and Charlize Theron looks so awful, whereas the fight in Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron looks awesome? Well, there's one reason, and his name is Chad Stahelski, because he knows what he's doing. Chad Stahelski is an expert martial artist himself, and he knows how to shoot action. So he made Charlize look absolutely awesome in Atomic Blonde, and you hand it over to whoever directed Fast 10, who's a serviceable, good director and shot all the things and spaceships and whatever else they have going on in that movie, but he can't make Charlize Theron and Michelle Rodriguez look great in a fight scene in the way that Chad Stahelski can. And there's two reasons for that. A, Chad Stahelski is Chad Stahelski, and B, Charlize and Michelle are not are not trained martial artists. No, it's not any of those Darth Plato. It's a newer movie. It's not the Transporter or the Mechanic. It's much
And
newer than that.
hello, Joe Tyson. Hope you
Oh,
are
Big
well.
Joe is here. Hey, man.
And guys, do remember to check out Retro Nerd Girl's channel, her YouTube channel here on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe and support the other creators out there. Also, we had an amazing watch party for the Cultist season 1 yesterday here on Positive Fandom and the Burr Network. So please do check that out. And Retro Nerd Girl says the camera work around action fight scenes is so important to making them look good. Absolutely. And you know, I think Russ, and I didn't mean to cut you off in mid thought here, but
Mm.
I was just so flabbergasted at how poor that fight was between Charlize and Michelle Rodriguez. And I'm sure they worked really hard on it. I'm sure they did, but it just looked like something you might see on the street. It was not the type of level of what I was expecting from a Fast 10 movie. This should have been, you know, spectacular. And this was not a spectacular fight, in my opinion. And as I actually made a joke about it would have been better if they had had a lesbian love scene there. I think that would have, you know, maybe grabbed my attention.
I'd have been there all day for that. I'd have been there in the cinema on day one. Bonzo Kill actually sussed it out for me. It's called Wrath of Man. That's a really good film, but it's not a huge movie. Like, you know, we had to look for it. We're all saying Transporter and Crank and all that. It's none of those. But these films are out there, and you know, I've come to I don't know, a bit of an epiphany about it, and why? Because obviously I used to watch a lot of YouTube and so on. I just see people complaining about the same things, about the swapping, about the agendas, about the this and about the that. Well, you know, there's the thing, you know, don't watch it. It's going to upset you. Just don't watch it and watch something else, because these films exist and they are delivering constantly. And I don't think we talk enough about those films. And I'm not talking about you and I, or I'm talking about the sort of wider YouTube corner that Bonzo and yourself and Retro and Darth Plato and Irene and all the rest of us, you know, Mario, all find ourselves, because we all listen to the same things, right? You know, I mean, there's going to be some deviation. I know Retro and I listen to Aaron Fisher, for instance, although I've kind of stopped listening to Aaron Fisher lately, Retro, because I think he was going off the rails a little bit. And I found that with a lot of these channels. I just find them that they're just getting bent out of shape about things like the Little Mermaid and so on. But you know, go watch the latest Gerard Butler. He's out there kicking ass with machine guns. It's great stuff. So when you're talking about, you know, what I was saying about Hollywood being like a school of fish, to segue all the way back around via Scott Adkins and the wonderful Chuck Norris and all of those things back to Fast 10. I would say, again, with Hollywood being like a school of fish, bigger is always better. That's always the rule. It's always, you know, and Fast and Furious has now become known for spectacle. But it's what I would hazard, because I haven't seen the latest one, is that it's increasingly becoming spectacle without stakes or consequence
Or substance.
or substance, right? So you can have something spectacular, but if there's no emotional, to quote Bruce Lee, there's no emotional content therein, then no matter how awesome it looks, if the stakes and the consequences and all of that stuff and the substance are not there, then it's just another CGI car flying through another CGI window. You know, so, and I think that's where the Fast franchise has derailed, I guess, a little bit, in that it's less about family and more about cars flying through windows and things like that. I saw an interesting thing actually on YouTube. It was called Let It Die, and it was this guy who was having a bit of a rant about franchises and films that we just need to leave alone. And Fast and Furious was essentially one of those franchises that he mentioned. Like they won't, because they still make money and they'll continue to make them until they stop making money. But artistically, creatively, if you like, that I wouldn't. It's the Darth Vader isn't the Rock an action star. I wouldn't class him as that. I mean, he's more of an entity unto himself, isn't he? The Rock. Um, I don't know. Debatable, Darth Plato. Debatable, I would
Yeah.
say.
And I just wanted to say a shout out to Stubble McShape, who was here. And I'm sorry,
Oh, hey,
Russ, I
Stubble, I missed you coming in there, mate. I apologise.
he said, as I've said earlier, a sex scene and a fight scene have very similar storytelling structure. Thank you, Darth Plato. Excuse me, Stubble McShape. Both can be scenes of passion and both can be shot poorly. Yes. And I think that that would have shocked people. People would have been talking about this shit like forever if they had
Mm-mm.
gone with a Michelle Rodriguez, Charlize Theron sex scene where it started off where they're fighting and then they actually end up making love versus beating the crap out of each other, which just became off as so ridiculous. It would have been a much more interesting storyline and would fit into kind of like this spontaneous, spontaneously, I'm going to have sex with somebody. That's exciting. That would be fun to see in Fast X. Maybe you don't want to see that in John Wick, but it could fit into something like Fast X. I think they could have gone into another avenue with that,
Mm.
but also it was getting a little tired. I love Ludacris. I love that whole cast, but they were not utilized the way I would have used them. I would have put them into where they're at their forte. We need to see Alan Richardson beating people down. It
Hmm.
cannot be where he's talking. I don't know whether I necessarily want to see him talking. I want to see him going in there, kick.
Was he in Fast 10? Alan Richardson. Oh, I
Yes.
didn't know.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know whether I want to see Jason Momoa beating up people, but he at least should have taken his shirt off to a point where it's ingrediently off and literally him at the beach getting wet or something. If they
Mm.
had done something like that, if he's supposed to be in there for eye candy, if everybody in there is eye candy, then they've got to play that up. They've got to play that up. If Charlize Theron is supposed to be crazy, sexy, cool, sophisticated, sleek, go ahead and make her that way. Don't put her in a position where she's ever uncool. I don't want to see Charlize Theron scraping the bottom of the barrel. I want to see her always on top, laughing at when they have her in handcuffs because she knows she's going to get out of this
Mm.
and that, who has the last laugh. That's what I want to see. I kind of feel like they're not matching the personalities to everything. Ludacris is in the film, and I also feel like his personality isn't being matched to this. He's a musician, a very well-known musician, and I feel like they could play that up a little bit more in a different way. Let these individuals have careers in the series to kind of bolster it. Create a new song for the movie. I don't know, something, Russ,
Mm.
something creative like what we would expect. This could have been a very different Fast 10. But I did want to also mention, and I hope I'm not going too off topic here, but you mentioned him, Darth Plato. So if you mention him, I'm going to have to show a picture of one of my favorite stars ever. And I'm not quite sure how Sam Worthington came into this, but you brought him up, so I get to show a photo. Thank you, Darth Plato. I don't think Sam Worthington is an athlete. Do you know if he's a martial artist? He's not, right?
No, no, I wouldn't have thought so. He probably started out on Home and Away, the same as all these Aussie actors. As to what happened to him when it was in the biggest movie of all time, when he in Avatar, and he's in the second biggest movie of all time in Avatar too. So um, perhaps not much of a uh, brilliant career in terms of like diverse roles and all that sort of thing, but certainly a lucrative one. Although I think he was in an Australian drama I saw the other week, which is quite dark actually, and dealt with a person that had been accused of doing certain things that I don't want to discuss on this channel. But you can imagine what those certain things are, and it's basically it's the story of I think it's Sam Worthington that's with him. Oh no, it wasn't. I think it was Joel Egerton, one of the two anyway. Um, and it's a very very dark story. It's about a sting operation with the police, but yeah, really really good. But
Did you see him in Clash of the Titans?
yeah, yeah, he was great in he was actually really good. I quite liked those movies for what they were. But again, it gets back to this thing of let it die kind of thing. Was there a need for another Clash of the Titans movie? Yeah, probably, but not in the way that they did it. They basically tried to sort of retread the first one with hotter special effects, and um, and I love Greek mythology. I mean, I grew up devouring that stuff. But yeah, I mean, he's still out there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still making films. He's not stopping. He's still, in demand, I guess. And as you said, it was in two of the largest grossing films of all time. Certainly not anything bad, but I think he's still around, Darth Plato, and I'm still watching Sam Worthington. To answer your question, and you guys may not know this, but he's like one of my favorite actors. So um, I'm just so shocked you brought it up, Darth Plato. Maybe you've been listening and have heard me say things about Sam Worthington. I can't get enough of him, and he's the reason why I saw the first Avatar, and I got my just deserves, right, because when I went to go see the film, I didn't know that he was going to turn into one of the Na'vi. So I was like, you mean to tell me he's not going to look like Sam Worthington anymore? So that's how what happens. It's how it goes. And thanks Hollywood. Thank you. It's like, let's teach me a lesson, but it's okay. I'm fine with it, but that's all right.
Yeah,
But
Bonzo makes a good point here. He says Alan Ritchson is Batman. I was literally thinking that when you were talking about him. He's huge, handsome, charismatic, and scary. He's perfect for Bruce and Batman. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's a really brilliant idea. So guaranteed James Gunn isn't going to do it. 100%, 100% guarantee. Post a shit idea. He'll do that for sure.
yeah, Richton really blew me away in Titans, and he also blew me away in
Jack
what's that
Reacher.
other movie? Yeah,
Jack
and
Reacher.
yes, and I just think that he is so talented. He definitely is just really incredible. He's a great actor. He's badass. There hasn't been a character like him in ages. I think he comes across as he was very badass in Fast 10, but I was expecting him to really kind of lay it down, and we didn't get that. Maybe they had too many stars in the movie, and they couldn't focus on the more important things like does this character even mean anything in this franchise? Are we going for too much? Just because we pack a bunch of people in here doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be worthwhile. But they managed to do that in John Wick, and it was worthwhile. In fact, every single moment was worthwhile in John Wick.
Yeah, well, they take ages over these John Wick movies. That franchise has got 4 films, have been going 10 years or something like that. And really, they sort of roll from one to the other. I think Halle Berry trained for like 6 months to be able to do like constantly, day in, day out, like because she was desperate to be in these movies. Everyone seems to be desperate to be in a John Wick movie. Stars of a certain ilk want to be in them. And Stahelski said to her, "Look, yeah, we'd love you to be in it, but do you know what you're getting yourself into? Because it's going to be hard." She's like, yeah. On the making of, we've all seen the making of, and then all of a sudden, she's in it, and it's 6 months of work before you even start learning your lines. Like she's got to look like she's been an assassin for her whole life. So again, like with Charlize in Atomic Blonde, how good did Halle Berry look? Like she just looked completely natural, doing all of the things. So yeah, but yeah, no, good shout on Richard for Batman. Bonzo, as I said, it's a great idea. Therefore, it's not going to happen.
Definitely. I would love to see that. He's amazing. A blonde Batman, I'll take it. Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington is here. Hi. Says Farce Eggs Fast X was action packed, but not great. That's very interesting. And I love this. Irene says there was this one guy in high school. I think I know the guy, Irene. He annoyed the crap out of me, but at the end of the year, part of me wanted to smack his head into the keyboard and the other wanted to tie him down. Wow. Woo. And have my way with him right there in school. Well, Irene, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Trust me, we have all been there, and it's nice to see this there. Retro Nerd Girl says, I need to see Alan Rickman in more mainstream movies. Absolutely, absolutely, Retro Nerd Girl. We do need to see that. Bonzo Kilborn is saying that The Rock doesn't have a good sense of storytelling. He is perfect for Black Adam, but the movie was so flat. He needs a good writer director and to get out of the way. What do you think, Russ?
Oh yeah, I don't know, man. There was so much we saw in that Black Adam trailer that wasn't in that movie. Do you know what I mean? Like the bit where he smashes the planes out of the sky and he's doing all that stuff. And we know that there was like a ton of reshoots for the movie. actually it leads into what you were saying earlier on about wanting to see a hot lesbian scene and hot chicks and all that sort of stuff in Fast and Furious. And this would lean into Black Adam as well, Bonzo. Um, there's been an incredibly conservative swing in Hollywood, which I know it sounds at odds with the woke side of things, but everything is just so safe. Everything, they can't take a risk, and everything's by the numbers now. Which is why, I remember I wanted to love Black Adam, and of course, the best thing, Henry was in it, and I was excited because he was coming back and all that sort of thing. But I remember when we did the show after I'd gone to the cinema to see it, and you asked me what I thought of it, and I said, well, it was a movie, and it was a perfectly serviceable superhero origin story. But with these superhero stories now, we've seen it all before, which is why this whole James Gunn thing is a massive mistake. Like, if now we do need edgelord stuff, so go back to Zach. He's the king of edgelord. It'll be different, and people will love it. But that ship has sailed.
Nathan, I'm sorry, Nathan Trujillo says Dwayne, and hi Nathan again. Dwayne Johnson is a brand and not an action star. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to read it out. What were you going to say, Russ? I'm sorry.
Can't remember now. Thrown off my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, The Rock. He is a brand in and of himself. I'm not convinced he's an action star, but the conservatism with these sorts of things, because you've got this, like, especially for the major blockbusters, be it Fast or a Marvel or whatever it happens to be, because of this attitude that they have adopted, this ECG stuff, they're terrified to show a pair of tits. Basically, they won't do, like in the old days, you'd get the shot of the beautiful woman and it started her feet and it'd go all the way up and all that sort of thing, and she'd look fantastic, be it Farrah Fawcett Majors or Elizabeth Taylor or Sharon Stone, any one of these just stunningly beautiful people, and they don't do that anymore. I was reminded, even in the early days of Marvel, you'd have cleavage and Scarlett Johansson's bum and all that, and everybody knows what they're doing, and Scarlett knows what they're doing, and the director knows what they're doing, and we're going, "Ooh," like that, we're all looking because they're all insanely hot. But now it's not allowed anymore. You can't sexualize women in any way, shape, or form because it's offensive. It's okay to sexualize guys, obviously, that's fine, but not the girls. And there seems to be this conservative bent, as I said, which I know seems at odd with the word woke or liberal or whatever you want to call it. We all know what we mean when we're talking about woke when it comes to these films, right? It's gone so far the other way that they're becoming bland, and now the storytelling's becoming bland. First of all, with something like Black Adam, we've seen all that shit before, and second, they can't afford to take any risks anymore, and because they don't take any risks, things are all the same. You see something, I tell you what was a risk, it actually was Andor was a bit of a risk, not in terms of like its brand, but in terms of what they did with that particular brand. And guess what? Everybody that saw it loved it. They thought it was great because it was, but it was risky for Star Wars. I mean, it wasn't even the color tone, even the color gradient was, it was very Rogue One, or obviously. That was another risk. Something like that. Rogue One was a risky take, and that was awesome. Everybody liked it. And yes, Dino Dinosaur, Scott would make a fantastic Batman with his skills if WB would give him the opportunity. I'm always regretful that it wasn't him in Titans. I think Scott is actually not tall enough to be Batman by his own admission. I mean, yeah, sure they could give him this. I think he's a little bit taller than me. I'm 5'9". I think he's 5'10", and of course, Ben Affleck's like 6'6". Like Ben Affleck towers over Superman. Like, he's huge. He is huge. And I think to be Batman, you need to be huge. And Scott is not huge. I mean, he looks gorgeous, but he's not as big as that door behind me. And I think Ben Affleck is as big as that door, if not bigger, in terms of height and width. Like, he's just gigantic. He's like Dolph Lundgren, huge guy. And yeah, exactly. I remember when I was viewing flats, and I went around to see one, and the guy turned out to be one of the stuntmen on Justice League. And he was telling me he was Jason Momoa's double, but he was quite. It was taller than me. It's not difficult because I'm only 5'9", but he wasn't huge. But I was asking him about, what are they like? What are they like? And he said, "Oh, fucking Ben Affleck is just gigantic. Like he fills the room when he comes in, and you need somebody like that, I think, to be Batman. But I think on TV, like if you had a Batman show on TV, like a sort of older Batman show, yeah, Scott Adkins would be perfect for that. He would have been perfect in Titans, absolutely perfect, especially that opening uh, season, the last episode where Dick's having those visions, and Bruce Wayne's going absolutely mental as Batman and breaking legs and necks and elbows and all that. That would have been perfect for Scott. Yeah.
Well, Scott Adkins is very unique in another way. But hello, Rogue Thinker. I just want to say good morning to you. Who says morning all?
Hello, Rogue.
He also looks like he could be the guy next door. Like like you move into a new neighborhood and you look next door and there's this hot guy who lives next door who's, a martial artist. Like he looks like he could be that guy. He could have been good in Cobra Kai even, Russ. I could have seen him in something as mainstream as that. If they needed a character like that, which they did not, because they brought back all the old characters, but I could see him in something even like that. So he has a little bit of a guy next door appeal. I wouldn't mind having him as a neighbor. So, but I think let's say a lot of women and a lot of people who like men could see, like he feels almost relatable in that way, whereas I think some of these other stars, maybe perhaps it's not realistic to think that that person would be the person next door to you. But Scott Adkins, yeah, I could see him as the guy who owns a dojo and lives next door. That's cool. He has this sense of familiarity that is very appealing. And he does have maybe more of a down to earth feel about him, just naturally. At least that's how I see him. Just looking at him from, for people who aren't into action, you just see that headshot. You're like, yeah, I could see that guy. He looks good. Did he just move in next door? Kind of thing.
Hope springs eternal, eh?
Yes. So Mikey Lito is here. How are you, Mikey Lito? Says, good morning, everyone. Love the school of fish analogy. Russin says
Thanks,
audiences are responsible for the type of content they get. Sonic breeds Super Mario. I think it would be the other way around because I think Super Mario was out before Sonic, but Titanic breeds Pearl Harbor. Okay. DC breeds Marvel, breeds DC, breeds Marvel. You get what you pay for. Well, that is true, Mikey Lito. You make a lot of good points here. So good to see you. What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's chasing the dollars, aren't they? I mean, it's kind of like I've seen a huge backlash against live action Disney remakes. Well, guess what? Live action Disney remakes routinely make $1 billion. So we can get as upset as we want about them defiling the corpses of our favorite Disney classics and, get outraged by it and all that sort of thing. But, this is the amount of fucks Disney give about it, because every time they bring one out, it makes $1 billion, even if it's complete crap. So they're going to keep doing it, sadly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in terms of A equals B equals Pearl Harbor equals Titanic equals DC equals Marvel and so on and so on. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to keep on doing it until people don't go anymore. It's the same with, everyone brings up the Western analogy when they talk about superhero movies, don't they? But I rather think we're getting to that stage. As I said, I was so underwhelmed with Guardians of the Galaxy. Partly because of my own apathy, because I don't care about those characters particularly anyway, but the film didn't particularly do anything to make me care about them. And I've seen it all before. I've seen Nathan Fillion be cool and funny and I've heard all of the James Gunn one-liners, and I've heard all of the needle drops, and I'm kind of over it. Like, I've seen that a lot of times in a lot of different movies, and I wonder if the general audience will soon catch up to that, if you like, and just whatever. I'm not bothered about seeing the latest Batman movie or whatever it is.
Well, Mikey Lito goes on to say Grogu's kind of cute, but is that really enough? No, it's not enough, Mikey Lito. Not for a television series that's meant for adults. If this was a children's show, Grogu could be as cute as he wants to. You could see him hopping around and doing all sorts of cute things, and that's appropriate for children. So in that regard, it's not enough. And they should have done an animated series about Grogu already. It's been years.
It's
There
really
should.
not enough, but Grogu's actually quite a salient example of how you as a writer, producer, director, or whatever Favreau is doing on those shows has made a decision at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian, only to be told by his bosses, "Well, look, man, no, we got to bring him back because toys." And he's like, "Well, no, dude, because I've kind of like brought Luke Skywalker back now. Maybe we can get a series out of Luke and Grogu. Like imagine that. We can't have him come straight back to the well, no, fuck that. We're not doing a series about Luke Skywalker. We want him back in the Mandalorian, John. Get him back." But what about the dramatic weight of my art? No, forget it. Put the puppet back in the film, please. And that's it. And that's what choices Favreau got? Absolutely none. He's got to do what he's told.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And hello to the hidden. How are you? Says, really, in the cartoon, Superman is bigger than Batman. Yeah,
Sure, but Henry Cavill isn't bigger than Ben Affleck.
No, he's not. Tom Jr. Jackson makes a good point here. Most people forget that Alan Richardson was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film during the motion capture for one of the turtles and said it was one of the worst gets he ever did and wasn't treated well. That must have really
Is he a martial artist as well, though? I didn't know that about Richardson.
I'm not sure. I don't know everything about his background that I should. And Nathan Trujillo says, I think Batman will get near an R rating with Damian Wayne being a young assassin.
Do you know what? I couldn't disagree more, Nathan. I think I have a terrible feeling. I have this awful, awful feeling about this Brave and the Bold. Now, Batman Brave and the Bold was a cartoon series that ran on Cartoon Network for a number of years. I think four seasons, something like that. It was very, 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 very self-aware of what it was. And it was Silver Age Batman, so it was ridiculous. And Aquaman was like the best character in it. It was so funny. It was such a brilliant show. If I'm James Gunn and how clever I am, and how smart I am, and what a witty zinger one-liner writer I am, and I've been watching all of this Batman stuff for the past however many years. Christian Bale, dark and brooding Batman. Ben Affleck, darker and broodier Batman. Robert Pattinson, dark and broody Batman. People have seen dark and broody Batman. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call it Brave and the Bold, and I'm going to bring back Silver. And Robin's going to be a kid, and it's going to be cutesy. It's going to be just like. And if that is the path they are going down, these films are going to be shit because everybody's over it. Now, I hope I'm completely wrong because James Gunn is a talented guy and he is a very good writer. But I just have this horrible feeling with that tagline, Batman Brave and the Bold, and Damian Wayne being a kid, because I can't imagine them having him as an angsty teenage ninja assassin slicing his way through the hordes of the underworld in Gotham. I can't see it. I really do think they're going to do something like Brave and the Bold animated series. I mean, not as kid friendly as that, but I just feel that's the path that they want to go down, and it's not what I want to see.
Well, Bonzo reminds us that Adam West was huge at 6'5", 6'6", and Darth Plato says there was an episode of an animated series where Superman dressed up as Batman and responded to the bat signal, talked with Gordon, and Gordon says, he looks bigger. Irene, maybe your son can be Batman one day. You never know, Irene. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Stubble goes on to say some similarities between Sex and Action, scene of high tension, novice fumbles, not knowing what to do, often similar build-up and escalation. Resolution changes, character dynamics, and scenes are choreographed. And of course, one of my favorite, most recent Sex and Action scenes has to do between Maggie Q and Michael Keaton in The Protege, where, he's fighting her, she's fighting him, and he's like, are we going to do this or what? And of course they do. But boy, it sure felt good. Michael Keaton keeping it real. Thank you out there for being, the real deal. The Hidden says, if not Batman, Scott Adkins could have been MCU's Moon Knight. Interesting. He was great in that.
He could do any of these things. Like if you I think he could be James Bond. I think he's absolutely perfect. I think he's absolutely perfect for James Bond. He's not that well known. He can do all of the things. He's not. He's a bit more rugged than your traditional James Bond. He's English for a start as well. So I think he'd be ideal. I think he would be absolutely ideal for James Bond, and I think people would respond to it because, as you said, he does look like he could be a spy. Like he could be the bloke next door. You just don't know with Scott Adkins kind of thing. All right, he's the insanely good-looking guy next door, but nevertheless, he does have that relatability to him.
He really does, and it's 100% believable. I mean, you wouldn't be you if you were lucky enough to have him as the guy next door, that would be a miracle. But I'm saying that he really does have he's marketable as that. And I think because of that, he could fit into many more roles than what he's been getting. Bonzo Kilborn says, I wish they could combine the storytelling of Andor with the look of Mando. Yeah, Bonzo, oh my gosh, wishes. Oh my goodness. Mikey Lito says, let me tell you, the views on my Little Mermaid review were twice as high as my Spider-Verse review.
Did he like Little Mermaid?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. Darth Plato. Come on, man. Irene says, oh no, I'm so emotionally tied to those characters because my kids went as these characters and it won me over. That's okay.
That's great. I think it just for me, Irene. I was just watching it, and I'm not even gonna lie. I fell asleep. I was like dozing off watching the Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy, which is not the reaction I should be having at all. I should be riveted, and I just was like, I'm over this.
And apparently, it's 4 men enter, 1 man leaves, as Mikey Lito declares. By the way, when the fight is over, Retro Nerd Girl. And there's a winner, I'm going to take him out with a bazooka. Oh, I love it so much. You guys just make me feel so good. Stubble McShave says, I read up on post-traumatic embitterment disorder. Mm-hmm. It's a real thing in society where people are just bitter about something and will react to every small trigger. Wow, that's scary.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because like you do have a tranche of channels on YouTube that are very anti decisions that Hollywood is making about character swapping and the directions and the messaging in their stories and all that kind of stuff. But oftentimes, Stubble, the reaction is just as hysterical as the people that they're sort of criticizing. Like you can't see a black dude in something now and everyone's screaming that it's woke and it's this and it's that. So it's all become very reactionary, very bitter, and personally, it turns me off. I don't watch that stuff anymore. So, well, I didn't realize it was a thing. So it's an actual thing.
The only thing they didn't respond bitterly to a character like that in a comic was Eric July's campaign. But he is a well-known YouTuber, and he's been talking about making his comic books for a long time. So people bought them, and there hasn't necessarily been too much of a backlash about it. But that is unfortunate. And anybody suffering with that, just take a breath, breathe in and out, and think about before you write, before you type, before you send that email, before you send that text message, before you send that, voicemail. Think about what you're saying before you send it. Go ahead and delete it if you have to. Record yourself, delete it. It's okay to write it. It's okay to delete it. But sometimes you might want to think twice about sending it. Retro Nerd Girl says,
sorry, I just wanted to address that last point. Yeah, that's true. It was called Brave and the Bold, but the Brave and the Bold was actually a 70s and 80s thing that was like a monthly team up comic that DC used to run. And while I don't disagree that the introduction of Damian Wayne was very dark, I really don't think that's the direction that they're going to go in. I can almost hear them having the comment. We've had sort of 15 years of dark Batman. Maybe people want something else. That's what I fear will happen to Batman Brave and the Bold. Somebody said it'd be like Peacemaker, and I can imagine that too. Whoever said that. So I'm sorry, I forget who made the comment because they come up quite fast.
No, the Peacemaker one was Darth Plato.
Yeah, well, you're quite right, Darth Plato. Something like that. It's not. I can't imagine it, Nathan, being like a really black tale of this kid that's forced to kill and trained into a living weapon. I don't see it. I don't see it with the way that this ship is sailing at the moment. But hey, fingers crossed I'm wrong.
Absolutely. Tom Jr. Jackson Stubble was mentioning that because of the negative responses and
Sorry, I've just
often
got to answer this.
sure. Often the unsolicited or responding with a 10 when it should be a 1 negative response to some of the entertainment we're seeing now, that for the most part in some instances, while a person may not like it, some of their responses might be a little over the top, and people are actually concerned about their friends or about other commentators being enraged by certain things. So certainly when we do see people in the community get enraged, it does set an alarm. And that's what the embitterment thing was about.
Hmm.
Yeah, we pay attention, not so much because of their enragement, but because we're concerned. Everybody has feelings, and we acknowledge that. Um, now, we do have another topic which I do have to talk about. The Hidden says, "I wonder what WB has planned for their DC Green Lantern project." This is a good question. I have no idea. And Stubble says, it's a general comment on society, but I took it a little bit further. Nathan says The Little Mermaid took a while for it to find its footing, but magic showed up for the song "Kiss the Girl." This was so good. The chemistry between Ariel and Prince Eric made the movie. Oh, I'm so glad you liked it, Nathan. And oh, Irene, Irene, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says Art Moon for the entertainment this beautiful morning, blessed with your lovely face and good old Russ. Well, Irene Jobson, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I so appreciate it. It makes such a big difference. Thank you for being so generous, Irene. And of course, we love seeing you here. I hope the kitties are fine. And I hope you are doing well. Thank you so much for that. Bonzo Kilborn says, when your dad is the Dark Knight and your mom runs the League of Assassins, how light can your story be?
Well, it depends on how you portray the League of Assassins, doesn't it? You see, this is the kind of route that I'm frightened that they're going to go down, because we've all seen PG-13 ninja movies, for example. We've had schools of like teenage girls breaking out of a school where they're trained to be assassins and all that sort of thing, and these things are quite light. And we've seen, what's his name, Vin Diesel, um, the pacifier and all these kinds of things. He's like a highly trained CIA operative assassin, yet he's protecting a bunch of kids. It can be done. I'm not arguing the toss that it should be a dark and horrible story, Bonzo. I'm saying I don't think it will be. I have this horrible, sick feeling that they've taken all the wrong messages from what happened with the Snyder movies. They've taken everything that they shouldn't have taken from that and thought, okay, well, that didn't work. We'll do this. Whereas what they really should have done is just left him alone to get on with it, and then everyone would have been happy and it would have been good. But they didn't, and that's dead and finished now, and all the rest of it. I Hollywood again, like the School of Fish. How many YouTube commentators have you heard say the words, "They've taken the wrong message from this"? And that often happens, and that's what I'm frightened that they're going to do with this new DC thing. Is they're just going to go back to the 70s and 80s and throw that at us, and triumphal music and underpants and all of the stuff that's now so passe. It won't work. It goes back to the Let It Die thing I was watching. A lot of these things are of their time and of their particular moment, and I don't think we are, as a society, or as you could argue, like Rocky changed the groundswell, if you like. But when, as a society and as a sophisticated audience that has had a steady diet of superhero movies for the past 15 years, I just rather think we've moved on from that, and audiences might have moved on from that. But proof will be in the pudding. We'll see in 2025 and 2026.
Absolutely. And also, there was some. Oh yes, Nathan says that James Gunn said the Green Lantern project will feel like True Detective.
Yeah, well, he says a lot of things, Nathan, and I don't particularly trust anything that he says, because he's been caught out lying so many times now about how Ben Affleck read the script and loved it, and they were talking to him about directing, and Ben Affleck said, "No, I don't want to have anything to do with anything that they're doing over there." And there's been other examples of where he said things, and I think he's rather over communicative and maybe contradicts himself because these things are not set in stone. He hasn't written the script yet, has he? So we will see.
Well, I hope it is like that. I mean, it would be cool, you know. Let's see, Nathan. Let's see how it turns out. But I have to absolutely talk about something coming up. And Michaelito, maybe we will touch on this. I don't really know much about it, but we could if you wanted to. But there's something else that I think, could talk about. Um, has to do with a film that came out on, I guess, Thursday or Friday of this week. It is animated and it's doing pretty well. And I know a lot of you have seen it because you've told me um, pretty much that you've seen it. And I know Tom Jr. Jackson saw it. I think The Hidden saw it. I also believe that Nathan, I think you saw it as well. I'm looking for the information on it, but it has to do with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, Russ, I know you had said that you didn't get a chance to see this film yet, and you haven't seen the 2018 version Into the Spider-Verse. But what I can say is that obviously it's the same animation company, I'm guessing, that's done it, the same voice actors. It says right here that Across the Spider-Verse posts best opening day of 2023 to date with $51 million, with a 3-day now at 113 million. Tom Jr. Jackson was telling me that over 1,000 animators worked on this. Gee, Russ, that's not bad for an animated film in its first weekend of $113 million. Here it says that it's just really the biggest opening day of 2023 to date for a movie. The gross is beating Super Mario's Wednesday debut of 31 million, and even Disney Marvel's opening day for the Guardians of the Galaxy. And it is the third best ever for a Spider-Man movie, ranking behind Spider-Man No Way Home and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. Russ, do you plan on seeing this animated feature? And if so, what do you think is going to happen? Because, they have a third one coming out, which will continue these animated shows. What are you thinking about it?
Depends if we have to review it or not. If I have to review it, then I'll watch it. But personally, I've got no interest in animated Spider-Man movies. I'll tell you who does kick ass at animation though is DC. If they start releasing their animated movies to theaters, they probably be kicking Marvel's ass all over the place. Like that New 52 saga that they did was absolutely fantastic. I'm not so enamored of the Tomorrowverse that's followed it. I'm not going to lie, but I think I'm to continue with the fish analogy. I'm swimming against the current there because everybody seems to love these new animated Tomorrowverse ones, and I'm just like, nah. I preferred the other one. I liked the New 52 one, but no. I mean, if I have to review it, I'll watch it. But I've got no particular interest in Miles Morales, and I don't know who Spider Gwen is. I mean, it must be something to do with Gwen Stacy, right? But maybe I don't know. I don't know anything about it, and I'm not particularly fussed. I'm sorry.
Well, you don't have to apologize for not wanting to see something or not. It's not your thing. It's totally fine. But I did have to mention it because, Russ, it's interesting, as I said before, that when I go to my Regal theaters app on my phone and I click on up and coming films, most of them are animated, like for the rest of the year. And it is pretty amazing. Obviously, it's a result, I think, of the economy and, of course, the lockdown. But, I think it's interesting that I think it's going to do very well and continue to do very well in the theater. Although Mike Alito said that he felt it was more style over substance. And it was technically proficient, but that's about it. And the story, yes, was not the same level, I would say, as the first one. But it's a great watch. Like it's a fun, animation to watch. I think they did a great job with the animation. That's what I was looking at mostly. I love the colors. The colors in this animated production are just fabulous. And I love kind of abstract colors. Arbitrary colors is also what it's called, meaning that, the red suit can look a little purple or orange or green at certain times, but it's not actually orange or green. But they do it for effect. So it looks amazing. I love all that sort of arbitrary color applications in this. As far as going across the Spider-Verse, Russ, I've got to be honest with you. It could get confusing in the sense of, gee, there's a lot to absorb in part two. Mikey Leo, I kind of would like to get your opinion about that. And of course, oh yes, Nathan has a comment about it, and I do want to read that. I do want to say hello to Delta Ray Studio 3. Hello,
Hello,
Delta
Delta
Ray.
Ray.
So good to see you. No, we're not going to spoil anything. There's no spoilers. There's no spoilers. This is a non-spoiler. Guys, no spoilers, please. Let's respect the other, all of us who, so I like what Nathan has to say about this is elevates how sequels could be done. The landscape of how animated features should be done. And it lets DC and MCU know that they are weak in how they're doing. Well, that's interesting, Nathan. That's very interesting. You know, you have a good point here. I think that they are, as I said, the way that I would describe both Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse is that they push the limits of the multiverse in these, and they made it fun. You know, they're just having fun with this. There's a lot to be said in it. There's a lot, as I said, the second one has a lot to absorb. So it's almost as if you have to see that film more than once to really capture everything, right? I mean, I remember watching it and thinking, you know, if you turned away for a second, you missed something, Russ, because it was always moving forward. There was always some kind of action. There was always some kind of flow. And I realized, I said, yeah, I'm not going to understand everything in this because I don't know everything in the Spider-Verse. Like, I'm not a Spider-Verse expert. So as a person like me watching it, I'm not going to know everything or every detail. And that's fine. I can rewatch this film, you know, once it comes back onto streaming, which it will. It's going to be, it's going to get tons of views. It's going to make a ton of money. But it is something to think about, Nathan, about the potential for how sequels could be done. And also about animated features, which seem to be getting quite a focus for the rest of the year. I really like that comment, Nathan, and I think that is something I think a lot of studios could learn from. Now, Tom had told me, it may not have been in this stream, Tom Jr. Jackson told me in another stream that over 1,000 animators worked on this, Russ. The amount of work on this, it shows that, you know, there were that many animators working on this. It was a tremendous undertaking. And certainly I think, you know, you really are an auteur if you're doing stuff like this, because it's incredibly imaginative, incredibly creative. Now, in regards to having ideas and originality, I couldn't tell you because I don't know all the characters in this universe. You know, these might already be very well known and very well established characters that we get to see.
That's kind of the point, isn't it? I mean, I think with these animated, I know for a fact, and I haven't seen them, but I know for a fact from this one and the other one, there's enough in there if you don't know anything about it. But if you do know what, it's kind of like the Mario movie, I guess, in certain ways. If you do know what to look out for and you do know the backstory and you can spot all of these Easter eggs, then this is going to be an incredibly rich and enjoyable experience for you. In much the same way the Flash is, apparently, when he's doing his backward through time thing or through the multiverse thing, you get to see all sorts of stuff. And DC nerds apparently will be all over it. Like, there's some pretty, you know, obviously we all know now that, you know, Nick Cage, Superman's going to be in there. So yes, a lot of good stuff therein if you know the universe. I do know that, but that's all I know.
Okay. Yeah, and the hidden, we're just going to talk about it briefly because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I would say it's worth going to see. I think it's a fun film to see. I think you'll be entertained by it. If you liked the first one, Into the Spider-Verse, then you would probably also like the second one, although Mikey Lito didn't necessarily care for it. For those of you who did see it, a lot of people, you know, who have seen it have been enjoying it. No, don't worry, Mike. No, he didn't spoil it. He, guys, don't read Mikey Lito's comment. So I'm just going to remove that one. But I don't think I can. But the point is that don't read Mikey Lito's comment. If you think it's don't read his comments if you think it's going to spoil it. Guys, we don't want to spoil this for anybody. Hey, Tom Jr. Jackson loved Across the Spider-Verse. That is great to know. And The Hidden says, it is well known that the Spider-Verse 2 was part one of a two-part film going on. It was announced that way. So we know something else is coming. Yes, Tom, as he said, 1,000 animators worked on it. It really showed. It was really a great piece of work, Russ. I have to congratulate the production team on this particular animation. Do you need 1,000 animators to work on a film?
I
Well,
don't know
as
if they're Korean and cheap, probably.
we know that only way that a film like that could work would be is if you could get labor that was not as that costs less. So that's all I'm going to say, because 1,000 animators, maybe they worked for a few years on this. It's a lot of work. I think Across the Spider-Verse could be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscar, not Best Animated. It's that good. Wow, Nathan, so glad you
You know
like
what,
it.
Nathan? You could well be right, but again, there's a little bit of that conservatism, isn't there? Like they just didn't want to give Oscars for Lord of the Rings, did they? And then in the end, they had to, and they gave them all of the Oscars for the last one, which I think is the weakest the weakest film out of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. To be fair, but you can but hope. Um, because it's certainly will be diverse enough. I imagine that they will have used South Korean animators to do this. I could be wrong, but that's DC's go-to. They always go to South Korea to get their animators, so they'll have ticked those particular boxes in terms of representation behind the scenes and also on the screen, because that'll be a diverse Spider-Man. So yeah, you never know. Fingers crossed. Wouldn't that be awesome if it did? Even if it didn't win, it'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
I think it's a great accomplishment for them. And while they may not win an Oscar, I think Studio Ghibli would be more of the house that might win it,
Mm.
even though they don't have as much action in their, let's say, animated features. The story, alone would win over. But it doesn't even matter. I mean, I think that this Across the Spider-Verse accomplished what they wanted to achieve, which was to tell the story of these particular characters, and they did it well. And it was fun to watch it. But like I said, if you turn
That's
your
what we want.
yes,
That's
um,
what we want. We want things that are fun to watch. And I'll tell you what was fun to watch. If are we done with this, or do we still want to do more about Spider-Man?
I'm gonna shut down Spider-Man right now. I just wanted to there was one thing I can't remember. Yeah, but I did just want to mention it was fun to watch. And guys, it's a passion project. They loved making it, and that was the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. But please let us know what you want to discuss. I forgot that you have to leave at in a little while, Russ.
Mm.
Please tell us.
Yeah. So talking of passion projects and things that are spoiled, I tell you what was fucking spoiled, and that was Obi-Wan Kenobi. That TV show was shit. Everything about it was shit, and I hated it, and it was garbage, and it was junk, and nothing made sense, and it was stupid. And then I watched the Patterson cut, and the Patterson cut of Obi-Wan, 2.5 hour movie out of a 6 or 8 hour show, however many episodes it was, made me feel things, made me care, made me watch, made me excited, made me sad. This cut, if you have not seen, because he's updated it recently, when you talked about a passion project, this is clearly a passion project. Guy's not making any money out of it or anything like that. And I was sitting there watching it, and I was thinking to myself, if I was the head of Lucasfilm watching this, I just feel like an utter fool. I really would feel like an utter fool, because this kid has done what he can. Look, the plot is the plot, and that can't change. But the stuff that he did just made this feel like proper Star Wars. Like it was proper small things. Like he employed somebody to de-age Hayden Christensen for that one scene. And he explains, using Star Wars lore, why Obi-Wan doesn't cut down Darth Vader. he brings things in. He uses music, and it's thematic music. Like, he talks about the fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan at the end of this, and how it starts off with the duel of the fates, and then the thing with the rock, the rocks happen, and Obi-Wan's using the Force and all that, and then it's the duel of the brothers when it comes out, because that's kind of telling the story of Darth Vader and Obi-Wan together. Like, he's trying to, he finally feels the he connects with Qui-Gon and all that sort of business, and that's what the inference is in the Patterson cut, that he connects with Qui-Gon on the ship, and it's Qui-Gon gives him the courage to go, and that's why you've got the Duel of the Fates, because Qui-Gon is with him, but then when he overcomes the rocks, and then it's the Duel of Brothers, because it's gonna, this is the end game, and there was so much in that cut. Um, like, Reva was a baddie who didn't have a redemption arc and wasn't annoying. Now, admittedly, he was stuck with much of the dialogue and all that. So I wish he hadn't included the line, "So have you come to destroy me," and all that, because obviously, well, no, I was on the ship that you were trying to destroy, and you're here. You could have just left me alone. But he was stuck with what they had. But what he did with what they had was just, it was brilliant. It was actually good Star Wars. It was good Star Wars. And I like I said, if I was the head of Lucasfilm sitting there watching that, I'd be going, oh, because you see, of course, the guy, I don't know, Kai Patterson. Kai Patterson is a Star Wars nerd. So in his mind, he knew exactly how to answer the question of why Obi-Wan doesn't kill Darth Vader. And the thing that he does, can we spoil it? Is it been out long enough to spoil it?
Yeah, there's no
Okay,
spoilers of it. It's
okay,
not.
okay.
Yeah.
So in the Patterson cut, which you don't get in the Obi-Wan TV show, he defeats Darth Vader, and because he's already reconnected with Qui-Gon, he's about, like, they have this shot of him, he's about to do it, and he hears Qui-Gon going, "He is the chosen one, Obi-Wan. He will bring balance to the Force." I actually got goosebumps as I said that, because it was such a cool moment, the way he cut those different bits of dialogue together. So he was getting a message, like, voicemail from, and that's why he doesn't kill him, because he says, "He is the chosen one, Obi-Wan. He will bring back," and he's like, "Oh fuck, well, I can't kill him then," and that's why he does it.
Well,
Um, if you just Google it, literally Google it, Bonzo, and it will come up. He's got his own website, and if you click on it, it'll direct you to what they call them, mirrors or something like that, like a mirror hosting service. You can download it from there. Um, in fact, if you have got, if someone can put you in contact with me, I don't know if you can do that, RM. I actually uploaded it to my YouTube. Um, I don't know if the link will work, but I'm happy to send you the link. Or you can just go to Google, search for Patterson Cut, and download the newest one, because that one's got the de-aged Anakin Skywalker on it, because he's updated it a couple of times. Because I watched the making of, and he goes, "Oh, why I didn't de-age the guy because I don't know how to do it." But since then, he's got someone in, and they've de-aged him, which just changes that scene. So, because it doesn't take you out of the scene. It doesn't take you out of the scene. But so when you see 40-year-old Hayden Christensen pretending he's like 18, that instantly takes you out of it. But this just doesn't. Um, but yeah, so the end bit, so he doesn't kill Darth Vader for that reason. But then the whole Darth Vader being on his knees screaming Obi-Wan at him when he's walking off, because it's kind of like you get the way that Patterson cuts it is like, it's almost like he wants to lose at the end. This is all I am now. This is what I have become. This is what you made me. That this is what I made myself. Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker. Blah blah blah, blah, all of that stuff, and it's like his rage and frustration that Obi-Wan hasn't ended it. He's sort of left it, and it's brilliant. And you get none of that. None of them stupid thing with Luke Skywalker at the end or anything like it's all cut out. And in this one, Reva is a decent antagonist. He has done everything he can with it to try and make this watchable. and not risible, however you say it, which is what it was on TV. And as I say, if you're the head of Lucasfilm, you're sitting there going, "Fuck, we look really stupid. We look really, really stupid. Why haven't we got people that can do this for us?" Well, here's the thing: he's a massive fan, and he cares about the property. Of course, if he was a executive, he'd care about making money as well. But there in a lot of these franchises, Fast, Furious, if you like, Marvel, Star Wars, all of that. As I'm talking, I'm thinking, is there just a lack of care and a lack of knowledge that goes into these things? I think Rob Burnett often says, um, they should have someone like him in the Star Wars room, not necessarily him, but someone in the Star Trek, sorry, writers room, someone that fucking knows how many decks the Enterprise has got, someone that knows why you can't use the lifts to do a certain thing because actually that lift that you're talking about ends up on Pod B and not Pod A, which should put them in the aft of the ship, and therefore you can't do that. But what you could do is you need somebody like that on there who loves it and wants it to be good. And I think with Star Wars, the Grogu thing's like quite a salient point, isn't it? It's not necessarily about it being good anymore. It's about the product. It's about the content. That's one side of Star Wars. I'll answer your question in a second, Irene. The other side of Star Wars where you see people do caring is Andor. Like whoever's working on that, they gave a shit. Now, I'm sure Gilroy doesn't know everything there is to know about Star Wars, but Gilroy made damn sure that he had somebody there that does. And you can see that in the background in Luthen's shop. You can see that in the shots that they use. You can see that in the hairstyles that they have. You can see that in the references that they make to the wider universe. Few and far though they are there. And a bit like Spider-Verse, when you know, and you can go, oh my God, that's an Inquisitor's helmet or whatever it happens to be in the background. Oh my God, look at that lightsaber. That's that bloke's lightsaber that got killed in this novel that, 23 years ago. Blah, blah, blah. It's gold dust because they care. And clearly the Spider-Verse people care. And I think that care and love that Kevin Feige, for example, is a massive nerd, the hands-on care and love and nurturing that those franchises once had is now no longer existence to be replaced by a glut of content, ruthless profiteering, message pushing that the core audience really doesn't particularly want to hear in many cases, and the curse of all of these things which happened with Rings of Power. And it's certainly Kathleen Kennedy, who I know isn't particularly popular with anybody. I know better. I can do it better than what you did it. Well, no, fucking can't, because it's been a disaster. So maybe a bit more love, care, and attention.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Russ, and I'm also glad that you saw it because we've been talking about it, but I haven't been able to say anything about it because you haven't seen it. And
I wouldn't let you. You try talking about it. Like, shut up! I'm watching it tonight. Don't tell me anything. Don't tell me anything. Just let me brief segue. Renofy Irene is a company in the States that I used to work for, and they flew me out to the States, and I was in Philadelphia. I never made it to the fucking Rocky Steps either. I can't believe it. It was brilliant. It was brilliant, and I was a senior content writer there, and I was absolutely loving it. And 6 weeks after I arrived, they laid off the entire marketing department, myself included. So it was like a 6-week contract, but I got a sweatshirt.
Well, and Thomas Bartoli said some very nice things to me about my stream last night of playing Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor. That's another one. People fucking cared, didn't they? Like the people cared about that. Like that's good stuff. From everything I'm not a gamer, but every single Star Wars thing that I've got on my channel are what's his name, Thor, and all of those guys. I've all said, this is good Star Wars. Yeah, this is great. I like this. This is really, really good. And I think he even has a girlfriend in it, right? He's allowed to have a romantic relationship with a girl that doesn't save him, and he saves her, and it's just great Star Wars, and apparently it's fantastic.
It is an amazing game, and I stream it every day. I play the game every day on my channel here on Positive Fandom. And Nathan stopped by the hidden. Irene, um, Thomas Bartoldi here says that he's more interested in watching it. Thank you for supporting me as I've been playing that game. It's been a lot of fun. Darth Plato as well. A lot of you who are actually here now stopped by. In regards to what we're talking about, and I can finally say about the this Patterson cut of Kenobi. Um, Kai, I happened to meet him at LA Comic Con in December of last year. And he is incredibly friendly, very nice person. And I told him, I said, thank you for taking the fight between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader and putting it into one long sequence versus breaking it up, which is what they had done before. So you're in the middle of a fight, and the next thing you know, you're in a cantina. And then you're in the middle of a fight, and then the next thing you know, you're on a spaceship. Like it didn't make any sense to break it up. And there were very specific things that he did that he edited out, because it is a fan edit of the TV series made into a more concise 2-hour film or something of that duration. And it got a lot of attention when it first came out in July last year. And, it took some time, like it was kind of a grassroots thing. I don't know whether how long he had worked on it, but the man is brilliant for doing this, because so many of us saw scenes in the Kenobi series, which were kind of ridiculous. As I say, they're unforced errors throughout the franchise, but he removed all that, and it comes off very different. You were right. I think the biggest transformation, it was the Reva character, who seems very evil.
She was an effective villain, but just to touch on that point, when you're talking about, be it Zack Snyder or anybody else, like, leave them to get on with it, leave them to do what they're going to do, because 9 times out of 10, right, if you're a business person and you went to business school and you're really, really good at business, you're not a creative. You're just not. So stop it. So here's the thing with the decision that they made with Reva. We need a really cool, black, badass, bitch boss woman. And we're going to use the Obi-Wan Kenobi series as a vehicle to promote Reva. What about Obi-Wan Kenobi? Like, well, fuck Obi-Wan. He's an old white man. We don't care. So in the fight that you're talking about, who does it cut back and forward to? Reva. Every time. It's Reva chasing Luke Skywalker. It's Reva being mean to Owen and Beru. It's Reva doing this and Reva doing that. Dude, the story's called Obi-Wan, right? So the final climactic battle is about the resolution, Obi-Wan's character arc, reconnecting with his master, as it is in the Patterson cut anyway, and overcoming his terrible fear of Vader and the guilt of what he's done or what he thought he's done. That's why Vader says to him, you didn't kill me, Vader killed me, blah, 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 blah. But we're going to interrupt you at every turn by, forget the dudes fighting for the climactic thing of the series, the whole thing. We need you to see more of this person because we want to make a spin-off with her. Shit, don't do it. Don't do it. Just tell us good stories and entertain us, please. Sorry, that was a bit ranty, wasn't it?
No, it's okay. That's exactly what I think the whole point of this thing was. Kai mentioned that his girlfriend encouraged him to go ahead and edit out the stuff that he didn't care for. And that was really important to see the effort that he put into it. But he's so down to earth. This whole thing has changed his life. He has a Kickstarter out, I think, that you can also look into. But this whole thing really just changed his life, because a lot of seeing that these other fans do things, and I think it inspires other people to do things too. And I think that any kind of, thing that inspires you to create is extremely positive. And, when you can kind of pass the torch, when it's that good that what you're doing passes the torch from one creator to another, you've done excellent work. It means that you've had an impact, over even the geekdom, and not just the geekdom, but the creators in the geekdom. It's a success over and over and over again. I think I've always said that you can take any bad film and edit it and make it a good film. Your face, Russ, your face is cracking me up. And, I think he proved that right. Although some people have challenged me and said that, the music will have to be completely redone and it's not appropriate. But it doesn't even matter. There's so much Star Wars music out there, and albums and stuff that you can re-edit the sound so that it sounds a certain way. We all know what we want to hear, as I was saying to you yesterday. When we see the two suns in a sunset, we want to hear Luke's theme. There's very specific things that we're expecting to hear. It's like you've got to hear that when you see a sun setting on Tatooine. When you see Darth Vader coming down the hall, you have to hear.
Come on, man! My balls tightened up when they were going to have that fight, and then it goes dun dun dun, bum, 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 bum. I was like, oh yeah, this is so cool. But that's the reaction that I want to have from watching a Star Wars movie. Yes. I don't want to be like, that Picard meme, like you don't want to be like that watching Star Wars, which is what it's been like a lot of the time. And I'm watching the Patterson cut from a show that was risible. It was shit. It was so bad, and yet he's taken every ounce of goodness he could find in it, and God knows how long it took this kid to do it. But my God, what a genius this guy is to take everything that the little bits, and he even shot new bits, didn't he, to things that he couldn't fix. He did some reshoots.
I did ask him if he was ever going to edit the sequels, and he said he wasn't sure if he could do that. That the sequels, there's something very specific about the sequels that he felt he couldn't go ahead and I'm paraphrasing. This is not exact quote. He really said he wasn't sure whether he was going to do that. And I suspect from the way he was telling me this, that there's something about the sequels that he doesn't feel he can sort of delve into. But he's capable of doing it. I would love to have seen what he could do with a fan edit of that. And we're going to see more fan edits. Tom Jr. Jackson mentioned Maria Espino's. She's doing a fan film, which is going to be, I believe, animated. And Rogue Thinker talks about the Oral Knots, who have made so many parodies about with the Larry series, which I love the Larry series.
I'm not familiar with that.
Well, there are parodies.
There's brilliant fan. There's one called Bucketheads about stormtroopers on the planet Endor after it blows up, and you think it'd been called Bucketheads, it'd be like a comedy, and it's not. It's like a Vietnam thing, and they're stuck there and they're trying to get away from the rebels and the whatever else is out there, the Ewoks and all the rest of it. And it's quite, action packed. It looked like it cost a lot of money to make. So yeah. Are there any chats that I have missed that anybody want me to answer anything before I take off? I've got like 5 minutes, then I'm going to have to run.
I'm going to end the show now. So we're both going to take off. But what I was going to say is, guys, you can reach Russ at russellwhitfield.com, or you can reach him right here at Positive Fandom. And of course, guys, you can find me here at Positive Fandom or at the Brrr Network. And also, I sometimes stream with Lorena as well as on the 1/6 Scale Man Network or El Profesoro's channel. So please do check out the Patterson cut, which Russ has been boasting about. It's spectacular. Thank you, Tom, for that comment about the 3-hour stream I did last night, 3.5-hour stream. Boy, it was late. I just want to thank everybody for today. I also want to thank Irene for the fantastic super chat.
Yeah,
Irene,
very kind.
Such a big difference for me. It is so kind of you to do that, Irene. Thank you so much for that. Guys, you all are wonderful. I just love hearing your comments and thoughts. Yes, I want to see some Leia and Mon Mothma towards the end of Andor season 2. Definitely Stubble. We're all counting on seeing so much more. Yes, Retro Nervo, you take care, my dear. And Irene, I love you all. Sorry for late. Hey, don't worry about it. We're waiting for you to give us a big pile of pancakes, Irene, and just keep the maple syrup flowing, all that good stuff. Thank you, Rogue Thinker. Thank you, everybody who was here, including Darth Plato. And of course, Michaelito, we love seeing you. Stubble, you take care. Nathan, Bonzo, everybody.
And Big Joe.
Yes. Everybody, hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much for coming out to Sunday Brunch. Tom Jr. Jackson, we are all good people. Thank you, Tom, for your help as always, guys. And remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind.
Thanks so much, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.